Hello, my name is Teresa Bonapartis, and I'm the director of Lumina Hope and Healing After Abortion and the co-founder of the Entering Canaan Post-Abortion Ministry. Entering Canaan offers retreats for women, men, couples who aborted because of an adverse diagnosis, and also siblings of aborted babies. We all know that since 1973, over 60 million abortions have taken place in the United States. Even the pro-choice movement admits that at least 10% of those people suffer from post-abortion stress. We're talking about millions of people. But abortion doesn't just impact the mothers and the fathers. It impacts grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, and it impacts siblings, surviving siblings. And I just wanted to start with a little quote because that's what I'm going to be speaking about today: surviving siblings of abortion. And here we go with the quote. I also used to ask for another sibling. I felt very alone, even though my little sister was alive. We were so different at the time. I always wondered if I was adopted because I never felt like I belonged. In reality, I don't belong anywhere because I was never meant to exist. This is the way that countless numbers of surviving siblings feel when they hear about the result of an abortion, that they have lost a brother or sister to abortion. So let's just think of that, because we're talking about 60 million abortions, we're talking about women and men, but with siblings, it's really very impactful because many of them have lost multiple siblings because of abortion. If the mother had an abortion when she was in high school or college, and then she got married, and maybe they became pregnant and they weren't ready for children, so they had another abortion, and maybe the father also had an abortion when he was younger. So right there, we're talking about somebody losing 3 siblings to abortion. So it could be very, very multiple abortions with a lot of people that are alive today that have lost many siblings to abortion. Maybe they had the abortion prior to the birth of this child, or maybe the abortion was after the birth of this child. So the circumstances are different, but the impact is very amazing as far as how it's impacting them. And I think we really need to start looking at this because we've got a wounded generation out there, so wounded. And I think maybe, and I'm not sure of this, of course, but one of the reasons why so many young people are pro-life now and more becoming pro-life is because they personally know the impact of abortion, either from losing a sibling or having a friend or someone who's experienced abortion and is suffering because of this. I was prompted to begin the sibling retreats because of my own personal experience. I had an abortion when I was a teenager and later became married and had 2 children. And when I felt called to do this work, I knew that I needed to tell my children about my abortion because I didn't want them to find out about it from anyone else. And after much discernment and prayer and counseling, I ended up telling them when they were teenagers. And it was quite a difficult time in our lives because it obviously impacted them, although both of them said that they always felt like somebody was missing. They had a sense, and that both of them expressed that now everything in their life made sense. And I think that we hear that very often from siblings of aborted babies, that once they find out that a sibling is missing, so many different parts of their life fall into place and they have a better understanding of what's going on. I also decided to do it because of the stories I heard from siblings. As part of my job, I travel across the country and the world. I do a lot of public speaking and workshops, and very often siblings will come up to me after and tell me that they know that their parents had an abortion and that they're suffering because of it. And there's no place to go, and that nobody really understands what they're going through. Also, a lot of women will come up to me and tell me that they've had an abortion and that they're concerned about their living children, and they want to know whether they should tell their children about their abortion or not. I can't tell anyone whether to tell their children or not. That's really something on an individual basis that should be done from counseling and discernment and really examining why it is that you want to tell your child about the abortion. And it's very individual, and of course it also depends on the child child themselves and where they're at emotionally, how old they are, whatever. We'll get into that a little bit in a little while. But I wanted to read you the quote from one of our siblings, Mike, who found out about his mother's abortion later on in life. And he said, "Suddenly my whole life was beginning to make sense. Every desire and sadness. I had actually felt this loss in my heart throughout the course of my life." So when he found out about the abortion, everything that he had felt before then suddenly made sense, and all the puzzle pieces fall into place. And I think that that's really something that's very much experienced by many of the siblings that come to us. So how did they find out? Some of them, the parents just come right out and tell them. Maybe they tell them out of guilt. Maybe they tell them like I did because of something that they plan on doing. There's a whole host of different reasons why a parent might tell their children about a prior abortion. Maybe the sibling overheard a conversation that the mother or the father was having with each other, or maybe on the telephone. Some of them just always just had a sense and just always knew. And then sadly, there's also parents that are very unhealthy and unhealed, that when something happens with their child will yell out something like, "I wish I had aborted you like I aborted the other baby." Some of the questions that they have, and really think about this, because I think this goes very, very deep, and we don't recognize how deep it gets. I know that I've been doing these, this is the 10th year, and I'm still learning myself so much about what they experience in different situations. But a lot of times, there's a big question: was I wanted? Would my name be the same? If the abortion was before, and then they had that name, they wonder if they had the name that aborted baby would have, or if that baby had been born, they certainly might not have the name that they had now. They experience a lot of conflict and confusion, and they also wonder, would I even be here if that baby was born? So if somebody had an abortion and within the next year they got pregnant again, they question that. If that baby was allowed to live, would I even exist? And so there's a part of them feels guilty for being alive, and there's a part of them that's glad they're alive. So there's all these conflicting emotions going on inside of them. Here's a quote from somebody else. "When I was 18, my mother told me about her abortion. I was aghast and said something cruel to her, like, 'How could you do something so terrible?' We let it drop, and I forgot about it, but I had not really forgotten. I didn't think about it consciously for years, and then suddenly I found myself thinking about my little brother. I became disoriented and lost control of the car for a moment as I burst into tears, thinking of having lost him. I was astounded by my reaction, but I couldn't shake the sadness and longing to have known him." Many of them express that whole idea of not even being there if their parent didn't have an abortion. And these are some other sentiments that maybe they experience. Guilt for being alive, but grateful for the gift of life, like I said. That they love their parents. These are the people that took care of them, that love them, that are there for them. And yet, there's a disappointment, maybe even an anger over the fact that they aborted another sibling. They question whether they were wanted or loved. There's a desperation to understand. There's a question of their worth. Are they worth anything? And there's a loneliness born out of the thought that they're isolated in their feelings. So providing a safe place for those who suffer from a sibling survivor guilt is very crucial. A place just for them where they can express all of their feelings without fear of being judged because of the feelings that they have, and fear of others judging their parents who they love, and fear of hurting those who are already suffering because of abortion. And I just want to give you a short couple of examples of this, and just a couple. One of them would be Chelsea Clinton. Supposedly Hillary has had abortions, and then when they were advancing their political career, they thought that they should have a child, and so they had Chelsea. So when you think about it, Chelsea has grown up in a family where she knows that her parents had her to advance their political careers, but she also knows that other siblings were aborted. I don't know how many, but I have read that she did have, at least one abortion. Maybe it was more than that. And so Chelsea obviously felt the need to overperform, to legitimately endorse abortion because of the position of her life, and to speak out about it as a good, because again, maybe she wouldn't be here if those other babies had been born, or maybe she feels like she needs to live up to expectations because she was given her life in order for her parents to succeed. Another example would be Mark Ruffalo, who is an actor whose mom had an abortion before it was legal. And from what I understand, it was a very difficult abortion. She almost died. And so she's very pro-abortion, and so is he. And I think we have to look at that as, so he's looking at the fact that his mother almost died from a unsafe, illegal abortion. And we all know abortion is still not safe. But those that support abortion tell a different tale. And so he's very pro-abortion, and he speaks out against that. And sadly, I think the pro-life movement, we often will criticize him, like he's criticized all the time, instead of reaching out with compassion and trying to get him understand how abortion is the thing that hurt him and both him and his mother, and understanding that of course he wants to protect his mother. So sometimes I think we get lost in that shuffle, and we're so adamant about life, which we should be, but we also need to be compassionate to those who have suffered, to invite them in for healing themselves, because I think we miss a lot of really good opportunities to convert hearts and to talk to them, because we're so focused on one thing and not really offering the compassion and the understanding that these people need in order to begin to hear what we have to say in order to change their hearts on the abortion issue. Another of the manifestations would be anger and shame, being ashamed to be alive and feeling anger because of a parent's abortion. Sometimes with this, another manifestation is that the parents are very much overly protective. They don't feel like they deserve to have a child, and they're also always afraid that somehow God's going to get back at them, and so something terrible is going to happen to their children. So they could be like hovering parents with their children. And also the other half of that is parents that are very distant because they don't feel like they deserve to have any children, and so they're afraid to bond, they're afraid to come close because they feel like they're terrible parents and look what they did, and how come my child ever forgive me for this if they found out, and they live in a terror of their other child finding out about the abortion. And then the other thing is the kids themselves, the siblings themselves, feeling a great need to protect their parents. And I just have a note that a sibling wrote here, saying that she's the daughter of a post-abortive woman, and I'm a post-abortive sibling. I want you to be nice to my mom. Even though I lost a sibling to abortion, I will not shame her by calling her a murderer. She's still pro-abortion, but is progressing slowly because of me, and has been harboring her abortion for 35 plus years. So she's talking about, help me, really is what she's saying, help me to convert my mother so that she can turn into somebody that's pro-life. Don't call her a murderer because you're going to send her in the other direction. And that's so true, isn't it? People need to know God's love before they can begin the process of healing. And we need to be manifestations of that love to them. They also feel unworthiness. They feel survivor guilt. They feel unloved, and they feel low self-esteem. And here's another quote, and I put these quotes in here because it really is them talking themselves, and I thought it was important to show you that. So it says, "It was right after my mother's abortion that I began to feel unwanted by my parents. Even though I knew they loved me and had always cared for me, I couldn't help but feel that I needed to be worthy of their love, that I needed to somehow justify having been allowed to be born. Several years after my mother's abortion, and while still an adolescent, I attempted suicide. I took several sleeping pills mixed with alcohol, but they only made me sleepy, and my parents never found out what I had done. The loss of part of my self-esteem because of the abortion experience affected me adversely in many ways throughout a great part of my life." I think that one of the things I just want to touch on as well is the fact that I often have people telling me that they've told their child and their children are okay. And I just want to really address that a little bit in the little bit of time that we have left, is that they're not okay any more than we were okay when we had our abortions. And they go into denial just like we go into denial, especially if they feel that they can't talk about it, especially if the parents don't know that they know, or especially if they see maybe the mother really pro-life, or maybe the mother really involved in different things and still hurting in certain ways, and they don't want to hurt her or him or the father even more, and so they hold all these things in their heart. And I think that it's unfair, and I think it's a healthy response not to be okay with this, because they have lost a sibling and they do need to grieve, and they do need to process all the feelings that they're having. They do need to understand. They may have to forgive their parents. There's so many dynamics involved in it, just like there's so many dynamics involved for the mother and the father. And so I would just say that if someone has told their child and they say their child is okay, I think that's a disservice. And that doesn't mean that you should be filled with guilt, or, I'm obviously not saying that. But I think it's important that if a child knows that they have the right to be able to say what they need to say, and to be able to express those feelings or ask questions without us becoming defensive, that we have to be able to handle whatever it is they need to say to us, and know that as God has forgiven and healed us, God is going to heal our children as well. And I just think that's really important. Other thing, of course, is being age appropriate when you tell your children. Some people tell children very young, and it's really heartbreaking that they live with that burden, because often too they don't talk about it, but it's something that eats them up inside. And we've had that with older people that have come to us that found out when they were younger and just really had a hard time dealing with the fact, but didn't want to discuss it with their parents. And I think that again, it's really important to recognize that, and to recognize that just like it has an impact on women and men and everyone else, it has an impact on the siblings, and is very hard for them. So in the healing, we really just try to give them a place to be together, to listen to their feelings, to be able to express their feelings, to know that they're not alone, to build a community where they can communicate with one another so that they don't feel alone in all these feelings. And here's something from someone who came to one of our retreats. It's difficult to put into words the peace and comfort I received when I participated in the healing retreat for siblings. Meeting other retreatants who knew personally the pain and grief of losing a sibling to abortion made me feel less alone in my loss. As a child, I can remember feeling like someone was missing from my family. During my teen years, I pushed those thoughts away because it seemed not true or possible. 6 years ago, when I learned my mom had an abortion 4 years before I was born, suddenly everything that didn't make sense to me came into focus. So again, it's the same pattern with all of this. Another one, at the retreat, I made peace with my siblings. In fact, I've sensed them as a benevolent presence in my life, as people whose souls were sent by God to our family and are still linked to us. I'm thankful for the retreat for helping me to connect to them in a more spiritual way. A lot of people have lost siblings to abortion, and we need to be aware of our invisible family on the other side. And I just wanted to end, we do our retreats once a year. Certainly the information will be up on the site, so you can contact us and let you know. We have people that come from all over Canada and the United States to attend the retreat, and we do have a very limited, we limit the number of people. So it's important to register if you know somebody that would like to participate in one of these. And I just want to end with a poem that someone in the retreat had written. When I was 15, your life started, 16 when your life ended. She said no one told her you were more than a lump of tissue. I'm sorry for the ignorance. Your father would be 57 now. She said he doesn't know. I wish she had told him. I wish he fought for you. I wish someone fought. I'm sorry for the secrets. You would have been my half sibling, 14 years older than me. She took you from me before I even existed, before I could do anything. I'm sorry for unfairness. You would have been 34 years old. I would have more likely been married, and you would have had your own children. I would have nieces and nephews. You would have a family, but you weren't even given a name. I'm sorry for the abandonment. Maybe when my other siblings were telling me lies and devaluing me, you would have spoken the truth. Maybe you would have stood up for me when no one did. I'm sorry for life being devalued. Is it possible to miss someone you never even met? Because my heart longs for you. It longs for you to have life. I'm sorry for your death. I wish you could have come to my graduation. I wish I could have gone to yours. I wish we could be friends. I wish I could call you right now. I wish I could share all of our joys and griefs. I wish we were at least given a chance. I'm sorry for selfishness. It's just so unfair for you, for us. How could she have killed you? How could our grandmother drive our mother to the clinic so that they could murder you? I'm sorry for the silence. I miss you. I love you. I'm so sorry that no one loved you. So let's just pray that ministering to siblings becomes something that grows in this time where it's so needed and so many people are wounded by abortion. Thank you.